struggle greet you on the mountains that you climb, a war within the soul for every step you gain. Remember when the winds of sorrow strike you down and leave you hopeless and afraid. The proof of battle is the wounds that you will bear, the scars that build you strong for the journey that you make. There's not a victory without a fight. There's not a sunrise without a night. And there's not a purchase without a cost. There's not a crown without a no great anguish ever came upon a man, and when the son of glory died, the sins of all of us were nails that pierced his hands, an act of sacrifice, the pain within the price. His crown was fashioned from his suffering and travail, strong like the sun when he arose. He showed us triumph even when all hope is lost. He carried out a plan so that every man would know purchase with.
All right. Hey, good morning, everybody. We are live, but I don't think anyone would be on right now to the live. Okay. We're having these technical issues again. But this, can I just go with this one? Okay. So what we're gonna do is I'm sorry, I don't understand. Our stream was showing everything perfect, and I don't understand. Anyway, we're going to I'm gonna record this morning's Manna, and I will upload it shortly. So I apologize for the delay. And do we want to try live again?
You can, but
Just skip the song?
It might end in the middle of it.
Okay, well, I'll just tell everyone right at the beginning what we're doing,
So then you
like I'm doing right now. Okay, so we're going to try to go live. So we're going to end this one and start another one.
No, we're not going to end this one. Sorry.
We're not going to end this one?
No, just use this one.
Okay, is everyone jumping on here?
Yeah, we have 9 people on now.
All right, okay. Oy, oy, oy. Okay, so we're going to do, is this, this is live? Okay, let me find it. I got to get to it just so that I, there we go. Okay, so this is live. So let's just go with it, and if it freezes, then don't worry, something will be up shortly. Okay, so let me say hello to everybody. I want to say hello quickly. Hello, everybody. to Ron and Amy and Kelly and Jeannie and Jenny and Lauren and all of the Eddies. And I'm hurrying because I don't want to run out of time. Jerry and Janet, and to Hattie, and to everybody else that gets on late. Hello, my sister. I love you. Okay, let's just Barbara. All right. Let's just jump in because this is such an amazing passage. Let's just get into it. The title today is this is the Take Up Your Cross preview. One of them, the Take Up Your Cross preview. When movies get released, you have multiple trailers that come out a lot of times. So it'd be like the first trailer, would be like, oh my goodness, there's a trailer drop, so that's what my kids do. I didn't know people got excited about trailers till my kids started getting excited about trailers. But this is a trailer, a preview for Take Up Your Cross. And we're looking at the rest of Isaiah chapter 50, verses 4 through 11. Again, in Isaiah 49, the Lord's been, the accusation of the people was this, Isaiah 49:15. But Zion said, Adonai has forsaken me, Adonai has forgotten me. And to which the Lord emphatically replies, says, can a mother forget her nursing baby? And even if she did, if that was possible, I won't forget you. I've engraved you on the palms of my hands. And then he continues to respond to this accusation at the beginning of chapter 50, which we looked at yesterday, which said, thus says Adonai, where's the divorce certificate by which I sent your mother away? Or to whom of my creditors did I sell you? Behold, look, you were sold for your iniquities, and for your transgressions your mother was sent away, right? So the Lord says, produce the certificate of divorce, because when you produce it, on it, you're going to see what the cause of the breakup was. You did this. It was your twistings, your rebellions. That's why, this has happened. Why, and the mother pictured here as Zion is pictured as being sent away. The divorce certificate is real, but that doesn't eliminate the possibility of reconciliation. But he needs them to come to terms with the issue, with their issue. You're saying God has abandoned us. I didn't abandon you. You abandoned me. In fact, in verse 2, he says, I came. Why? Madua. He says, why? I came and not a person. There was no one. He goes, and I came. Why? I came and there was not a person, not a man. I called, no answer. Is my hand too short to redeem? Or have I no power to deliver? Behold, I dry up the sea at my rebuke. I make rivers a wilderness. Their fish stink for lack of water and die of thirst. I clothe the heavens with blackness and make sackcloth their covering, right? But so he points to what he can do creatively by creation, and he points to things that happened in Egypt during the plagues, that the Lord can do whatever he says he'll do. And so now, again, the beginning of chapter 49 was revealed the servant as God's answer to the people's problem. Then we see these objections, their fear, their accusation. And so now the Lord introduces what we have come to know as a third servant song. So they're called, through the years we've come to see 4 different servant songs. And this is the third of them. Let's look at them really quickly before we get into this one. The first one again was Isaiah 42, 1 through 4. Behold my servant, whom I uphold, my chosen one, in whom my soul delights. I have put my ruach upon him. He will bring justice to the nations. He will not cry out or raise his voice, or make his voice heard in the street. A bruised reed he will not break. A smoldering wick he will not snuff out. He will faithfully bring forth justice. He will not be disheartened or crushed until he establishes justice on earth. The islands will wait for his Torah, right? And so the question was, is that Israel or is that the servant, the Messiah? And what we come to find out later in chapter 42 is that, Israel as servant, who he says, who's as blind and deaf as my servant, who, you've ended up Israel has ended up in a pit because of their own doing. Have we not sinned? He goes on to say. So this is the servant spoken of here. We first think is Israel, but it turns out Israel didn't fulfill this calling. The second servant song we saw was Isaiah 49. the first 6 verses. It says, "Listen to me, islands. Pay attention, peoples far away. Adonai called me from the womb, from my mother's belly. He named me. He made my mouth sharp, or like a sharp sword. In the shadow of his hand he hid me. He made me a polished arrow. He has hidden me in his quiver. He said to me, you are my servant, Israel, in whom I will be glorified. But I said, I have labored in vain. I've spent my strength for nothing in futility. Yet surely the justice due to me is with Adonai, or surely my justice is Adonai. Surely my reward is my God." Verse 5, "So now, says Adonai, who formed me from the womb to be his servant, to bring Jacob back to him." So verse 3, he says, "You are my servant, Israel." So this is the one that will function as Israel was supposed to function. In Isaiah 42, we saw the calling, but Israel didn't function in that way. And so now he says, "You are my servant, Israel, and you will bring Jacob back to him, to gather Israel back to him. For I am honored in the eyes of Adonai, and my God has become my strength." So he says, and that's not even enough. It's too trifling a thing that you should be my servant to raise up the tribes of Jacob and restore the preserved ones of Israel. His plans are bigger. He says, "So I will give you as a light for the nations, that you should be my Yeshua, my salvation, my deliverance to the ends of the earth." And then the Lord responds to that. So this third servant song, which is technically verses 4 through 9, and then verses 10 and 11 are sort of the response to it, the tail piece of this. The third song is autobiographical, like the second. It's the first person speaking by the servant. But unlike both of the previous servant songs, it doesn't reference the servant. It doesn't state my servant until we get to the tail piece, to verse 10, that points to that when we discover that the servant was speaking, and will we listen to him. Let's read the whole passage, and then we're going to go through it. Verse 4, "Adonai Elohim has given me the tongue of the learned, that I may know how to sustain the weary with a word. He awakens me morning by morning. He awakens my ear, he awakens my ear, startles my ear, or arouses my ear to give heed as a disciple." Verse 5, "Adonai Elohim has opened my ear, and I was not rebellious, nor did I turn back." Verse 6, "I gave my back to those who strike, and my cheek to those pulling out my beard. I did not hide my face from humiliation and spitting. For Adonai Elohim will help me. Therefore I have not been disgraced. Therefore I set my face like flint, and I know that I will not be ashamed. The one who vindicates me is near. Who will accuse me? Let us stand up to each other. Who is my adversary? Let him confront me. See, look, Adonai Elohim will help me. Who is he who would condemn me? See, they all wear out like a garment. A moth will eat them up. Who among you fears Adonai? Who hears the voice of his servant? Who walks in darkness and has no light? Let him trust in the name of Adonai and lean on his God. Behold, all you who kindle a fire, encircling yourselves with firebrands, walking in the light of your fire and among the brands you have lit, this you will have from my hand. You will lie down in torment." So as we move from verses 1 through 3 into verse 4, the only thing that what we experience here in terms of what's happening here is there's a contrast between no man, of verse 2. I came and there was no man, no person. I called, no answer. Right? But here in verse 4, someone speaks up. And it seems, after all, there is someone who, when he called, answers, who, when he speaks, listens. Right? And the servant that we just read about, he's not listening just to listen, but he's listening in order to sustain the weary. And as we moved through the chapter, what we saw was the servant is one who listens, someone who is a disciple of the desire, the chafetz, of the will of God. That he's one who says, I heard and I didn't rebel. I didn't turn back. He obeyed even when it hurts, even when it cost him. When falsely accused, he endures and trusts and rests with full confidence in the sovereign Lord. And so again, there are those who try to take the servant songs, Isaiah 42, Isaiah 49, Isaiah 50, and then Isaiah 52, 13 through 53, 12. There are those who try to take that and say, well, the servant is collective Israel as a whole. Well, what we've seen is collective Israel as a whole, God's people, has been unheeding of the Lord's call. Right? He says, I came, there was no one. I called, no answer. The servant is listening day by day. Right? God's people, collective Israel, are unconvinced about God's faithfulness, about his love. We've been abandoned. We've been forgotten, right? But the servant expresses, in the face of the suffering, expresses a confidence in the Lord's help. He's near. Right? The suffering of God's people has been with cause, right? He says, look at the certificate. Look at the document. It's your iniquity. It's your rebellion. That's why you're here. While the servant suffers because of his obedience. The servant is confident that he will be vindicated and that no charge against him would be sustained. So you have the many and you have the one, the collective and the one, and the distinction between them is it's not just one contrast between them. There's a gulf between what Israel was called to do and failed to do, and what the servant then came to demonstrate and do. To show us how we were to walk. To fulfill, ultimately, the call that we could never fulfill in our brokenness. Verse 4. Adonai Elohim, or again, Adonai, and then the name of God is there. So it's the sovereign Lord, the Adonai Yod-He-Vav-He, the Lord, my master, has given to me the tongue of limudim, which is disciples, to be discipled. Has given me the tongue of the learned, or the discipled, or the discipling, the teaching and the taught. That I may know, that I may recognize how to sustain, how to help the weary, right, with a word. Or to know the word for the help of the weary. It says he awakens me in the morning, it says. Every morning, morning by morning. He awakens my ear. Right? He stirs my ear, awakens, rouses my ear to hear and to do. Shema, to hear and heed. So that's why he uses the word heed here, because Shema means hear and obey. Like a disciple, like a student. Right? So this language, he's given to me the tongue of the learned, or the tongue of the disciple, expresses a particular function of the servant here. Right? And it confirms the point that was made back in chapter 49, verse 2, that says, he has made my tongue like a sharp sword. The servant's task is a prophetic one, to speak forth. He is to declare God's word to the world. It's been given to me, or it could be appointed for me. It conveys this sense of calling and the assignment. But it's not been a gift given to be, he's given me the tongue of the learned, right? He's given me the tongue of the learned, because I've got to use it for what purpose? Right? For what purpose? I've got to use it is to sustain the weary. Right? The educatedness, the learnedness of the servant is not simply something that functions as sort of like this, intellectual understanding. I know so much. right? But it's that of a disciple who has understanding, who grasps the heart of the one teaching him. And the desire of the one teaching him is what? Is help for the weary. This is the heart of God. Help for the weary. What's supposed to be coming forth from the people of God who are functioning as God's people for his purpose is help for the weary. His knowledge is not simply for personal enjoyment. Oh, this was so good. But it's to be declared with purpose. We read in Luke 4, Yeshua came down to Capernaum, verse 31, a town in the Galilee. He was teaching them on Shabbat, and they were astounded at his teaching because his message had authority. They were astounded at his teaching. When he finished the Sermon on the Mount, it says, now when Yeshua had, Matthew 7:28, when Yeshua had finished these words, the crowds were astounded at his teaching, for he was teaching them as one having authority and not as their Torah scholars. Right? He was flowing forth from him. And the servant then has this word for the weary, right? He's bringing revealed truth to the nations with like what's described in the servant song of Isaiah 42. Right? He's not going to, there's a gentleness, there's an unaggressiveness about him. Gentle speech, but incisive. It cuts right to it like a sharpened sword. So he knows to say, to know the word for the weary is to know how to sustain the weary with a word. He speaks, right? Matthew 11:28, come to me, all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy, and my burden is light. Boy, so much comes religious, heavy. And he comes listening, hearing, and then doing the heart of the Father. Right? This awakened ear, ready to receive the word of God. Right? That's the first mark of discipleship. Under the disciple that's being instructed is first, the one who disciples is first discipled. And what he spoke forth, right, as the sharpened sword, as the polished arrow, it didn't happen all at once, right? He grew. It's the scriptures talk about in Luke that he grew in wisdom and understanding. And what came forth from him were products in his humanity of products of prolonged attention, right? Defined here as discipleship of a morning by morning appointment with God. Right? And he regularly listened. What do you have to say to me? Morning by morning. Right? The first Adam, the Lord says, I came, no one. I called, no answer. The second Adam, when the Lord comes, when the Father calls, he answers. He's responsive, unashamed, right? With a tongue filled with the appropriate word, with the heart of God. Yeshua says, when you see me, you've seen the Father. It flows forth from him. Verse 5, Adonai Elohim, again, same language, Adonai Yod He Vav He, my master, Adonai, the sovereign Lord, has opened my ears, and I was not bitter, contrary, rebellious. This is the language Mara. Nor did I turn backward. Nor did I turn back. I didn't deviate. Right? So there comes a moment in the morning, in the sequence of this morning by morning instruction, when a particular something about what he's received from the one speaking forth to him was received, and it was met by obedience. It was something that maybe others would have heard and been like rebellious about, or wanted to, I don't want to do that, resistant to. But he perfectly responded, right? And someone could say, well, look, this is the call of the prophet. This is just talking about the prophets who hear what God says and do it even when it's uncomfortable. This is not just any human prophet. I mean, it's not, look, Jonah's not the only one who resisted the call of God. The greatest of the prophets, Moses, was like, not me. Jeremiah later reacted against the things that were his calling required of him. This is not simply a human prophet. Now, we're not told at this point in the passage what it was that the Lord had called the servant to do, only that the call was met by a total response of his will, saying, I'm not rebellious. There's no defiance. Right? Psalm 40, verse 7 says, sacrifice and offering you didn't want. That wasn't your chafetz, not your desire. My ears you have opened. Burnt offering and sin offering you didn't require. John 14:31, but in order that the world may know that I love the Father, I do exactly as the Father commanded me. Matthew 26:39, going a little further, he fell face down and prayed, saying, my Father, if it's possible, let this cup pass from me. Yet not as I will, but as you will. Hebrews 5:8, though he was a son, he learned obedience from what he suffered. We continue verse 6. He says, I gave my back to those who strike, to the striking ones, and my cheeks to those pulling out my beard. I did not conceal or hide my face from humiliation and spitting. Right? So this is not simply, again, the personification of Israel. This is someone who actually felt the blows. He revealed suffering was to come. I didn't rebel. I didn't turn back. Instead, I gave. This is what I was saying. The instruction came morning by morning, and I gave, right? I gave my back to those who strike. I gave my jawbone, my cheek to those pulling out my beard. I gave my face to spitting and humiliation, right? This was suffering not because of wrongdoing, but through obedience. Right? I didn't rebel. I gave what was asked of me, what was called of me. And at first glance, it might seem strange that, part of his obedience is to submit to humiliation and abuse. But honestly, just even a prophetic call, the prophets who were actually obedient to the Lord, that you had the institutional prophets that were popular, and they were at the center of power. But the real prophets were suffered. Their message was never well received. But here Isaiah doesn't name the servant, but he offers this kind of clue. Hey, you'll recognize the servant like this. He gave his back. I offered my back to those who strike. I offered my cheeks to those pulling out my beard. I offered my face to spitting and humiliation. Matthew 26:67. Then they spat in his face and pounded him with their fists. Others slapped him and demanded, prophesy to us, you Messiah. Which one hit you? Matthew 27:30, they spat on him, and they took the staff and beat him over and over on the head. And when they had finished mocking him, they stripped the robe off of him, put his own clothes back on him, and they led him away to crucify him. Now, there are people that would suggest that, well, all of these prophecies, what you see in Isaiah 50, was available. So they suggest somehow that Yeshua is sort of artificially fulfilling the prophecies of Isaiah, of the suffering servant. But we've talked about this in messages when I've talked about Isaiah 53. The idea that when everyone is looking for a Messiah who's going to come in and take over the throne, they're looking for someone who's going to come and lay down the lives of the Romans, not lay down his own life. So if you want to be, if you're a pretender, when everyone's looking for the Son of David, you're going to focus on suffering and walking through this. That'd be insane. And because people aren't looking for that. And even for the followers of Yeshua to somehow suggest they didn't have a mindset or an understanding of the suffering servant until it happened, and then they were like, oh, then they understood. He brought understanding to them. He says, I'm going to offer my back. I'm going to hear what you say. I offer my back to those who beat me, my face to those pulling out my beard, my cheek to those pulling out my beard, my face to those who spit and humiliate me. Because Adonai, it doesn't actually have the because. It just says Adonai Elohim, or Adonai, the sovereign Lord, will help me. Therefore, I have not been disgraced. Therefore, I set my face like flint, or it's actually the hard rock described here. It sometimes even could be a diamond, like it's unbreakable. It's not going anywhere. And I know that I will not be ashamed. Now, in ancient Near Eastern culture, if someone submitted meekly to public humiliation, he was at least tacitly admitting that he had done something to deserve the abuse. Someone wouldn't sit there and just take it if he was guiltless. But this person, after saying, okay, I heard your instructions morning by morning. I didn't rebel. I didn't turn back. I gave my face. Or I gave my back. I gave my face. I gave my cheek. But I know I haven't done anything wrong, he says. I know the Lord will help me. I know Adonai Elohim will help me. The sovereign master will help me, that he will be my support, that I will not be ashamed. I've set my face like flint. I'm not turning back. There's an endurance that's expressed here in the face of something that would make you want to turn back. But he's not. And then going into verses 8 and 9, it depicts really a court scene. He says, the one who is near me is my vindicator, is the one who vindicates me, who declares my righteousness. Who will contend with me? He uses the language reeve, which has to do with to fight me, to oppose me. It's often legal language. Who will accuse me? Who will fight me? Who will contend with me? And then he says, let's stand up together. We'll stand. Yachad, let's stand together. Who is my adversary? Who is the one? The master of my justice is the language of Baal Mishpat. Who is the one lording justice over me? Let him draw near. Let him confront me. Right? So when he says the one who vindicates me, it's this term that says the one who accounts me righteous. And the servant speaks with this kind of confidence, right? Because he knows that the one who can prove him innocent is near. The one who is Lord of Mishpat, who is master of justice, is near. And so he makes clear in the most unmistakable terms that even though the adversaries of the servant think he deserved humiliation and abuse he received, he knows he didn't. Right? God would be the servant's witness that no such charges would be justified. So you say, well, okay, well, why? Why suddenly is there all this emphasis on the undeserved nature of the suffering? And again, when we get to Isaiah 53, that provides the clue. If the servant's suffering was deserved, it can't be done on someone else's behalf. If he earned it, it can't be done on someone else's behalf. But the instruction morning by morning, he says, I didn't turn back from it. Instead, I gave my back, I gave my cheek, I gave my face. Verse 9, he says, behold, look, Adonai Elohim will help me. The sovereign master will help me. Who is he who will condemn me? Who calls me wicked, it says, who wickeds me? Who is it? Behold, look, they all of them like a garment wear out. A moth will eat them up, right? Those who are accusing, the accusations and the accusers are compared to sort of the internal, sort of the transience of a garment that just wears out. That material has no strength before its natural predator. So then we come to these final two verses, and I know I can't tell how long we are today because I know we got a late start because of the issues. And like all the servant songs, this one is followed by, like, it's the servant song, and then there's a response to it. In the first two servant songs, in Isaiah 42 and Isaiah 49, the tail pieces were confirmations by the Lord of the servant's task. Okay, here's what's happening. The Lord speaks. But in this one, in the final song, the tail pieces then are exhortations to us to respond to the servant, right? By accepting him as the demonstration, as the model. And the status of the servant, the place of the servant is such that now he's, in verse 10, he's addressed, this is the servant who was speaking, basically. And we're told that we should be listening, heeding him. It's heeding him is in line with fearing the Lord. Verse 10, who among you fears Adonai, reveres Adonai, is in awe of Adonai? The one hearing the voice of his servant is the answer. It doesn't say who, it says shomea, hearing the voice, heeding, obeying the voice of his servant. This one that we just read about, who fears the Lord? Listen to what he says. The one who hears me morning by morning. Who walks, and then again, speaking of the one who fears Adonai, is, now this can be confusing at first, but it says, which walks in darkness and has no light. I'm walking, I can't see. In the midst of the suffering, in the midst of the difficulty, it's dark, I can't see the light. What does he do? He says, let him trust in the name of Adonai and lean on his God. Right? Listen to the voice of the servant. And you say, I can't see what's happening. This is dark and there's no light. I'll tell you where your light is. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Lean not on your own understanding. Let him trust in the name of Adonai and lean upon his God. In all his ways acknowledge him and he'll direct your paths, right? To walk in darkness and have no light is part of the description of the one who fears and hears, right? Those who commit themselves to the servant way will have a servant experience, right? It becomes normative for the followers of this servant because it's true of what he experienced. It's not an indication that they've missed the will of God when things get difficult, when it feels like you can't see what's going on, when it's painful. But it's intrinsic. It's part of the life of obedience. On the other hand, verse 11, behold, all you who kindle a fire, encircling yourselves, the word for encircling is girding yourselves with firebrands or blazing arrows or, torches. Walk in the light of your fire and among the brands you have lit. This you will have from my hand. You will lie down in torment. In pain is the language. Atzav. Torment is from atzav, from pain, from toil. This is the curse of sin. And he says, those who continue in your own way, dealing with life's darkness with a do-it-yourself remedy. What we should do is listen to the voice of the servant. And in the midst of the darkness, trust the Lord and lean upon our God. But those who are going to light their own light, who are self-sufficient, right? Who gird yourselves, you armor yourselves with your own light. You surround yourselves. Now I'm safe with what you can do. And you're walking not in trusting in the Lord, but in the light of your own fire, in the light of what you have lit, among the brands you have ignited. Well, this is the result. It's pain. You're going to lay down in the consequence of not having done what I said. In atzav, in pain, in torment. So each of these last two verses has these 6 lines, and they contrast 2 walks of life. Both of them walk. One is walking in darkness, the other is in self-kindled light. The one walking in darkness, it's like it has no gleam of light. And the other one is surrounded by torches that he has lit. In verse 10, the one walking in darkness that has no gleam of light leans on God. The other, who self-kindled light, surrounded by the torches he has lit, lies down in pain, in torment, So for the one who leans on God, we don't get the ultimate expression of where a blessing is promised, but the implication is that if you follow this way, you won't end up this way, lying down in torment. Right? And so who are we going to, or if we fear the Lord, listen to the servant. Don't do it your own way. You think you think you've got your own light, you've got your own way of understanding, your own way of doing it, and this is dark, I don't get it, it doesn't make sense to me. And the Lord said, I'm doing a new thing that you don't understand, but from now on I'm talking about something new. I want you to hear. Haven't I always been faithful? Haven't I always said it and it's come to pass? So can you learn from that and take me at my word now? At what point will you take me on my word, at my word? So the servant, right? The servant cannot be collective Israel. He himself cannot be a personification of the believing, trusting remnant, because he's offered here as their teacher, as the one through whom they learn what it is to fear the Lord. Matthew 16. From that time on, Yeshua began to show his disciples that he must go to Jerusalem and suffer many things from the elders and ruling Kohanim and Torah scholars, and be killed and be raised on the third day. Peter took him aside, began to rebuke him, saying, "Never, Master, it must never happen to you." But he turned and said to Peter, "Get behind me, Satan. You are a stumbling block to me, for you are not setting your mind on the things of God, but on the things of men." And Yeshua said to his disciples, "If anyone wants to follow after me, he must deny himself, take up his cross, and follow me." Right? What did he do? Day by day, he listened. He didn't resist. He didn't become rebellious, but he put his back to unjustified beating. He turned his cheek to unjustified pain. He turned his face to unjustified humiliation to demonstrate the love of God. And he says, if you want to come after me, and that's what I'm here to do, but they couldn't see it. If you want to come after me, you must deny yourself. Do as I do. Take up your cross and follow me. For whoever wants to save his life will lose it, but whoever loses his life for my sake will find it. And that same Peter that was rebuked later writes to us in 1 Peter 2, it says, "What credit is there if when you sin and get a beating you endure? But if you endure when you do good and suffer for it, this finds favor with God." Verse 21, "Because to this you were called." This is what you were invited to. "Because Messiah also suffered for you, leaving you an example so you might follow in his footsteps. He committed no sin, nor was any deceit found in his mouth." That's from Isaiah 53. "When he was abused, he didn't return the abuse. While suffering, he made no threats. Instead, he kept entrusting himself to the one who judges justly." Right? For all who have ears to hear, for all who will open their eyes to see, Take Up Your Cross preview is right here in Isaiah chapter 50. Right here before us. The obedience, the submission of the servant, and the demonstration that he put before us that we're not to follow in. For those who have ears to hear, let them hear. Let eyes be opened, let hearts be softened, ears be opened, awakened to what the Lord has made available to us. Will you not see it and respond to it? Amen. All right. So good morning to everybody. I know it's gone really long today. I couldn't split the passage up today. I just didn't feel like I could. So good morning to everybody, to Sonia and Margarita, to Elizabeth and Jesse, and my sister Maria. I love you, sis. Good morning to Eileen and Mignon and Rashad, and to Hattie, and thanks to everyone for your patience with those first two. It looks like everything continued to Lauren and Mike and Levi and David and Valor and Haven and Everett. It looks like everything continued to stay good. Thank the Lord. Not sure what happened. It seems to happen at 10 o'clock. this hits. I don't know if everyone's busy on this day. So, all right. Well, Shabbat Shalom. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious unto you. May the Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. Shalom, shalom, Shabbat Shalom. Have a beautiful day.
To every life there come the questions of the heart, an extraordinary pain. Struggle greets you on the mountains that you climb, a war within the soul for every step you gain. Remember when the winds of sorrow strike. Lord, whatever comes, make me steadfast, make me rooted, a cedar planted firm, deeply grounded in your goodness. Whatever comes, Lord, whatever comes, be my bedrock, keep me steady, loyal to your throne. Whatever stands against me, whatever comes, be my bravery when I am trembling, be my courage when my heart is caving in, be the fireside when I am wandering, be my Father, whatever comes. Lord, whatever comes, may my soul be strong as iron, bending only when I kneel before the iron. Whatever comes, be my bravery when I am trembling, be my courage when my heart is caving in, be the fireside when I am wandering, be my Father, whatever comes. My bravery when I am trembling, my courage when my heart is caving in. fireside when I am wandering. Be my Father, whatever comes. Whatever comes.